Are you recording?
I was recording as of a minute ago.
Oh shit. Okay, sorry. Oh, 5-4. Okay, my bad. Anyways, welcome to episode 3 of the CQQC podcast. My name's Gabe, and I'm joined by Nate and Brian as co-hosts. And for this sort of series, we're calling it. It's going to be a university exec roundtable where we go around to various schools and we kind of interview some of the past and present execs from the team, just to get a sense of sort of funding and support they get from the schools in general. To start, though, we'll introduce them. So we'll start with Lydia, if you want to introduce yourself to everyone.
Sure. My name is Lydia Reid, and I am the president for Queen's Quidditch. I've been doing that for 2 years. I've been playing Quidditch for 4 years for Queen's, and I also just recently joined Team Canada. I guess my background is in soccer and baseball, and I also work at a retirement home as a dietary aide.
Awesome. And then Alyssa, if you want to introduce yourself.
Yeah, so my name is Alyssa Klyushin. I've played for Waterloo for 3 years now and have been president for 1 year, so this past year. I'm not sure what else I was supposed to say, but
No, that's good. Awesome.
Yeah.
We're gonna start with, like I said, it's gonna be a 3-part series. So this one's obviously with Queens and Waterloo. And we're just kind of that was kind of more of a formal thing. We have a bunch of questions here that we want to ask you guys, but we want to just kind of be more of a discussion based. We're going to try to keep it somewhat condensed in terms of how much time we allot to each question. But I guess to start, we'll start with what's the general executive structure you have within your club. So is there a voting structure? Do you just you're electing someone? Do you just decide randomly? Is there some sort of structure to it? Does the schools decide for you? That kind of thing. So we'll start. Alyssa, you can go first. What is Waterloo's sort of executive structure? Do you have is there a president? Is there a vice president? Is there a captain? How does that kind of work?
Yeah, so the way that we've had it split has been as admin versus coach and team involvement. So for me, for example, I'm the admin side of the team, and so I coordinate with our athletics department and do all of the planning and getting everybody's information and all that sort of Quidditch Canada related, top scorer related things. And then we have 1 or 2 captains who will actually plan the drills, make the lines, and sort of work with the actual team and doing the practices and stuff like that. And then we take on maybe 1 or 2 other execs to just help out wherever they're needed. So for example, we have 1 other exec who will do our social media, and then 1 more just so that we have 3 people on campus at least who are there to at least get the key to the equipment room. And then the way that we sort of elect or fill these roles has been at the start of the term that whoever's done it in the term before will just sort of send out a message to our Facebook group or or messenger group or a Facebook post within the Ridgebacks team and just ask if anybody's interested in doing that and sort of state what the different roles kind of come with. And then if people are interested, they'll send us a response. People aren't normally interested, so it's not really a competition. And that's sort of how it's been, at least within the last year. The years before, I think we pretty much had the same sort of people doing it for a while. I think you're all familiar with John Keats and Courtney Butler. And so they had it all, and then transitioned to myself and a couple other people who have tried to handle everything that they built. And that's the Waterloo side.
What's it like? I know my brother went to Laurier, so I know he knows that school very well, and Laurier is pretty similar. But you guys have such a large co-op program, so having such a 1 semester on, 1 semester off, or 2 semesters on, 2 semesters off. How does that affect exec and whatnot? Kind of continuity.
Yeah, so for exec, I think the biggest thing it affects is the coaches. So whoever is on term to actually coach the team, because the admin stuff and social media can sort of be run you don't have to be with the team to do that.
Yeah.
But it's the coaches that becomes an issue. So that's why every single term we'd have to send out that message and see if we can have like a new set of execs to run the team, which does make it hard, and especially because you'll develop this team in the fall that's like going really well and everybody's learning, etc., and then half of them will leave for the winter to go on co-op. And so in winter tournaments, sometimes you'll have like 10 people show up who haven't been to a single practice because they've been on co-op, but they still come to the tournament. And then they'll meet all these new players that came in the winter. So it's a bit all over. But over time, you kind of gather a cohort of execs who somewhat know what they're doing, and then you can switch on and off.
Awesome.
Yeah, that's great. That's good information. I'm taking notes, so like don't like just ignore me. Like if I'm not looking at the screen, but okay. So we'll go to Lydia. Obviously, Nate and I understand how Queens does it, but for those of us that don't know, can you explain how Queens does like the exec stuff?
Absolutely.
I've heard whispers and rumors, but like it's a whole other thing. Go ahead.
Yeah. We have 7 executive positions, including president, vice president, captain, treasurer, travel coordinator, fundraising director, and communications and promotions director. And every spring, we have to re-elect and submit our new executive members to our school so that they all have CPICs and just like volunteer sheets, because technically you work for the university now. Air quotes, because this is a podcast. And so yeah, around second semester, if you're an executive member and you know you're not returning, you start to like put a bug in people's ears to be like, oh, this is what I do. It's not that hard. If anyone wants to like, shadow me, we try and do shadowing programs to get the next executive members set up for the coming year, because that's a big jump to make.
Yeah.
And then, yeah, we host a vote. You submit an application. You answer questions like, what can you bring to the team? Like, why do you want to do this? What can you contribute? And then we put those out to the entire team via email or Facebook forum. And then everyone has a 48-hour period to vote on who they think best fulfills the position. And then the one with most votes gets the position for the next year.
Yeah, you guys, like... I heard like president, vice president, coach, and then like you lost me. But like
yeah, there's 4 that are actually important
yeah.
to have for the club, for the university, and the rest just help the club like work
run
effectively. Yeah.
But like, so I know like, well, I guess we'll talk to like the Guelph people later. And like with my background in Guelph, it was kind of more smaller. But like I can understand like having that division so much more that like you can just be like, person A is handling this, I'm handling that. Like, it's really good division of labor.
It really is.
Do you ever find, though, like, my thought was, like, okay, we need someone to handle finances. Where's that accounting kid? Like, first year accounting kid, like, you're coming in 2 years, this is your spot. Like, get ready.
It does tend to fall in the laps of people in commerce or economics. But this year, I know, the year coming up, our incoming treasurer is in... life sciences, actually.
Oh.
She just really likes to organize things, and she already has like a spreadsheet ready, and I'm just blown away. And she's in first year, which is amazing.
Right.
You keep her.
Yeah.
Next 4 years.
Never let her go.
A bunch of our exec next year are actually first years, and it absolutely warms my heart to see them want to take on this challenge. It's not challenging, first of all. But to want them to show the initiative, it means so much.
One question. So I know with Queens, we had used to be, I guess, underneath the AMS, society from Queens, and they transitioned to like the athletics and recreation, side of it. So how has that transition affected like executive decisions within the team, and kind of like the procedures you kind of have to go about by on policies and stuff like that?
Yeah, so AMS is like the student body. So we were just a club, like you can have the squirrel watching club under the AMS. But because we're a full contact sport, they put us in athletics and recreation, so that we now get health insurance, a little bit anyway, coverage through the school. And with athletics and recreation, it means that we get a slightly higher priority for room bookings. It's like we are still below varsity clubs, but above intramurals, which is helpful. And we don't have to pay for 3 hours of bookings per week, which is also helpful.
Nice.
How's the note taking, Gabe?
Good. I knew that like Queens Day that shift, but I didn't know that we had that's our priority. So that's good. And then I also wanted to throw in there too. I think one thing that like Queens does really well. I'm not trying to be biased here, but I think that we do really well is the shadowing program, because especially for those top positions, like people, especially when you're in school, you don't realize how much work it actually is. Lydia's gonna say that it's not a lot of work, and like like it. I mean, for the average person, it probably is. So like it's really good to have those shadowing programs to understand like what goes into those sort of processes behind the scenes, because I know especially with Queens, they're like super strict with a lot of the procedures, and we're very fortunate to have like that step up from AMS. I don't think people realize how much of a step up it is, but it's huge. Like some of the discounts we get, obviously we'll talk about that a little bit later, but like some of the discounts I'm sure we can talk about.
I think some of us saw the Queens cars coming in at regionals.
Yeah,
That
exactly. Just stuff like that, like you don't really think about. It's huge. So we'll get into that, but I want to talk more about Waterloo as well. So we'll switch into kind of transition pretty well here into like the support in general. So obviously, Lydia kind of talked a little bit about it for Queens, but we'll kind of pass it on to Alyssa. So in terms of like support you guys get from Waterloo, how are you guys defined in terms of like a team status? So I put that as a question there. Like, are you guys considered a varsity club? Are you guys considered like a varsity team? I don't know how like Waterloo does it in terms of how they rank their sports, like compared to like a football team, for example. How are you guys in comparison to them?
Yeah. So I'm not sure what you guys said about Queens being an AMR, ASMR thing. But I know in Waterloo, at least there's clubs, then there's what's called an athletic club, and then there's intramurals and varsity somewhere in there. I know varsity is obviously at the top. I'm not sure how we stand with intramurals, but I know that we've been considered an athletic club for a while. And so we also have like we probably have discounts on the facility booking, because it's been like, I think the last term was $50 for the whole term for facility bookings 3 times a week. So it's been super helpful there. The funding that we do get, so there's that. I know every term they send out this separate application. That's just a general sort of like a grant type thing that you apply for. And then within the fund, it's called the Matthew Bell's Endowment Fund. And so within this fund, you sort of outline your expenses, what you think you're going to be spending money on, and you apply to it like a typical grant. And then the money that you get is dedicated to like a specific thing within that grant. And so there's like pros and cons with that, because in the fall we applied for it to get a team set of jerseys, and I can talk about the whole jersey process, because that was like this year I was really pissed off about the jerseys, but that is a separate issue that we had. But basically, for this fund, we asked for jerseys, and once we got the money for it, but they said that it had to be a team set, whereas in the past, sort of what we would do is people would get their individual jerseys and have their names on it and stuff like that, and that was awesome, whatever. So we saw the appeal of having a team set, but that wasn't what we wanted the money for. And so when we got it, we were like, oh, could we transfer it to travel costs, for example? Could we transfer it to hosting this, for example? They were like, no, it has to be for this, and it has to be this way. So there's pros and cons with the support that we get. The pros kind of came in the travel, where I don't know if we want to talk about travel now or travel later.
Yeah, we can talk about it. Whatever you want to. Yeah, go for it.
So in the past, I know that the last couple of years, travel was just you have the cars and the drivers that are going to drive you to a tournament. You submit a form to athletics, liability, etc. Who's going to be going to the tournament? Who's in whose car, and all of that, and all the insurance and stuff. This winter, athletics has reorged that because of liability issues, and so now what they've mandated is that if you have drivers on your team that want to drive to the tournament, they can't take their personal vehicles and take people in those personal vehicles. They have to rent through Enterprise, through the school. rent those vehicles, and then take that to tournaments. And so this was kind of unfortunate
Yeah.
because it was like a huge incurring cost that we were like, well, we didn't like set that out in our budget. This came like halfway through the year, because in the fall they made no mention that this was going to be a change coming for the winter. It was like on the term preparation form at the end of the fall. It was like in like little tiny text, and I was like, what's that?
The one time you do read the tiny text, it hurts. But.
Yeah. So, but then the good news came in our end of term meeting with athletics, where we were going through the funding and paying for the sort of stuff that the costs we incurred throughout winter. And it was revealed to me that athletics had some leftover budget, like within the organization, and they allotted a part of it to the athletic clubs. And so they used that money to help pay for a lot of the rentals that clubs incurred. And so we ended up only having to pay like 20% of what the rentals were from our own money, which was awesome. And
That's
so,
pretty good.
and
That's
then,
good.
yeah, and then the athletics guy or coordinator explained to me that for future, like planning in the summer, you would outline sort of what tournaments you expect to go to in the next year. And then they're going to try to separate out the sort of travel expenses that they would expect to try and best support you with paying for the rental cars and stuff. Since this was like their idea, they want you to rent from here, so they obviously need to somehow make it easy for you to do that. Otherwise, we're just going to sneak away in our own cars to the tournaments.
Yeah. Nice.
Yeah, don't forget to remind me. I wrote it down, but I do want to come back to that point just because you bring up a good point about like tournament structure. We've discussed with other guests on the podcast. We don't want to spend too much time on it, but like in terms of a general structure of tournaments, and how if we could change it, if it would benefit you guys. Clearly, in this situation, it might, just for like an organizational standpoint. But we'll come back to that. So that's good. That's awesome. So Lydia, I don't know if you wanted to just quickly go over Queens, maybe like what we have in terms. I know you kind of already talked about it a bit, but in terms of organizing travel for tournaments and like general funding we get, if any, from the school.
So we've had similar rules to Waterloo for a while now. So we're used to, at the beginning of the year, recruiting drivers that are over 21 that have passed a provincial check on their driving records. And then, so every tournament, we have to book cars through Dixon's, who is the Queen's enterprise. And we get a slight discount on the cars. I'm not sure what it is. It's just we submit how many cars we need, and then Queens make sure that Dixon's has them ready for us when we need them. And then we get the invoice later. So we usually end up paying about $35 per person per tournament for all the fees at the end. And then, obviously, of course, the university also gets us travel insurance, like car insurance, which came in helpful at regionals when one of our rental cars got hit in the parking lot. So thankfully, our club didn't have to pay anything because the university provides us with travel insurance for that reason.
That's not bad. Like $35. Does that include gas?
Yeah, it's a gas, rental, and then we don't stay at any hotels anymore.
Oh, we know.
Yeah.
But like,
Wait,
no, that's pretty good. Like, that's $35. Like, I wouldn't be too upset if like I had to only dish out $35. Like, obviously, the less it is, the better. But not bad.
Can we just quickly touch base on like the whole like what is it, the stay and play policy? Like how did that change? I don't really know, so that's why I'm asking. But like, how did that change?
I believe that was a Quidditch Canada policy. That wasn't a Queen policy.
Okay.
I think that's just that like nationals. Yeah, do that.
So is it still in effect? Do we know?
It is not. No.
I don't know.
Okay. As in like Queens or for Quidditch Canada?
Like
or what?
like in Quidditch Canada. Like I don't.
So I can kind of speak to that being like in the background of QC, little secret super member there. Stay and play is put into place. Mainly for like those major tournaments. It's not always, but it usually is. The real drive for it is to provide financial kind of, I don't know how to say it, but financial incentive for those cities to host that tournament. So when we look for discounts for the field, usually Coach Canada gets a major kind of like knockdown from that, which if they didn't, it would just end up getting forced to fees, I believe. But instead you pay it to tournaments or to the hotels, and you get to stay like at the hotel, which is closer. I'm no economist. I did one like micro econ lab over the summer one year, so like my understanding is pretty poor. But it's more just kind of like increasing the economy and like giving incentive for like you go to the hotel, you stay there, they get like the workers get work because they have like guests. Then you have restaurants in the area providing food, they get business. Then something else, Tim Hortons. Not that they need the help, but like we've basically sponsored them through our business for years, and it's all kind of like a very convoluted puzzle, but it's there for a reason, and you don't really see the benefits, but you see the negatives of it, unfortunately. But yeah, it's there for a reason. But
fair enough.
Yeah, fair enough. Okay. So yeah, that's good. Got some good points here. I think hopefully people get a good sense of what we have in terms of support from Queens and Waterloo there. But I wanted to switch gears and talk more about retaining players and then recruiting players. So that's obviously a huge thing, especially as university teams. Obviously, community teams deal with it differently. But because we have turnover as we are students first, I wanted to kind of get a sense of how both of you guys kind of, or as like a team, how you guys deal with, maybe we'll start with like recruitment, and then we can kind of slowly kind of shift into how we retain players. So Lydia, I don't know if you want to go first.
Yeah, I can talk first. So we actually have a lot of recruitment that goes on behind the scenes, and not just during the year. So it actually starts in the spring because that's when the universities have spring previews for all of the students that are going to be coming there in the fall. So we always make sure to set up tables to sell merch, and we have t-shirts and we have stickers, and we always have like follow us on Facebook, follow us on Instagram to make sure they get those tryout dates in the fall. And then we also have summer programs. So the Queens has programs in the summer for high school students. There's SHAD, which is for like, I don't know, they're really smart kids. And they're so smart, but they stay there for weeks at a time. So they ask us to volunteer and just provide them with like something fun to do in the evenings once a week. And we push our shopping carts to the field and we set it up and we just let the kids play. And then at the end, we get a little bit of a contribution to our club, which is nice. And then also spreading the word of Quidditch to all these people thinking about where they want to go for university.
Like you might get a young, like very floofy-haired boy who's 6'5" and ends up playing keeper. He was telling us last week about it. Yeah.
That was one of my proudest moments. Was like, I remember you from spring. We also do birthday parties, which sounds ridiculous, but if you wanna host a Quidditch team, they often like reimburse the club at least a little bit. We don't ask for anything; it's just always like on your own terms. But that does help get the word out a bit, and then parents talk, and then sometimes they have teacher friends and stuff like that. And then obviously orientation week is where we get the majority of our recruits, because orientation week is such a huge deal at Queens. So we have 2 club fairs, and then we have a demo week where we offer how to play Quidditch, and we offer games for without joining the club. So that's a athletic and recreation policy again, is that you have to join the club in order to do club things. Imagine that. But you get to do it for free during orientation week. So we try and like get as many people to come out, move-in night, and then after club fairs and Sunday we do a fun day, and that's all before tryouts. Yeah, I think that's about it for recruiting. And then as far as retaining, on every team, there's this huge social aspect where it's like, I spend so much time a week with all of these people, and they're my friends, and we study together and eat together and live together.
Yeah, I was going to touch on that. Because like I think from my experience from Guelph, and like we'll have Michael on and later, but I think having those Quidditch houses are huge. Like you can really, like even if you just have one start up with like a new house of rookies that all end up living together, like if that sticks together, there's 3-4 years of teammates that become best friends just from spending so much time together.
I have to. I have the unfortunate task of tearing down this Quid house, and having to decide what memories to throw away and which memories I can fit in my tiny apartment.
Yeah. Good luck with that, Lydia. I don't envy you in the slightest.
Gabe, can we bring up that story about that Sunday Fun Day 2 years ago?
Oh yeah. Yeah, we talked about it. We had like a little. It was a first call, I guess, that sparked the whole podcast. But yeah, we had a little bit of a situation. One of the fun days. The fun days, for those that don't know, it's just kind of like a trial to kind of run like to show how we play Quidditch, basically. And we had a couple of rookies that were not rookies, but like people that were there first years, and it was. In hindsight, it was kind of funny, but at the time, it was definitely not funny. So John Nicholson, who was the captain at the time, I believe, he was really good tackler, great guy. This is definitely not a reflection of his character at all. It was just like a freak accident. But basically, long story short, he went to go tackle Kyle. He's trying to show how to do a tackle on Kyle, and Kyle wasn't really expecting it. And so he kind of like bit his tongue when he was falling back. It looked really bad, and it looked like he kind of like got all wonky or whatever. And then Shadow Davis Wong,
national champion.
This guy like ran off and kind of was like freaking out. And obviously it was a little bit scary. And like I feel bad for people that had to see it because it was a freak accident. But it was hindsight was kind of funny, but it was
definitely negatively affected recruitment for that.
Yeah, team. And that, to be fair, like that's just the downside of one-arm tackling, and we should have brought it up last week, to be fair, but. Yep. Is what it is.
Hey,
we'll keep pushing for the 2-arm tackling.
I'll provide my own example right there. My first year of Quidditch, the year that Royal City started, we had this giant lineup, and it was like 25 people on each side, and we were going to do our first practice, our first drill, which we're going to learn to tackle people. And the 6th person in, I was the 7th, like with my partner. I can't remember. It might have been Calder, who we all had on, but Daniel Longo. And Aiden Gould, who's he's been the assistant coach for Royal City for quite a few years now. Aiden went to go tackle Daniel, and he really like put his all into it and hit him, and Daniel falls to the ground, and Aiden gets up, and Daniel didn't, and he's holding his shoulder, and Aiden, who is probably about 5'5", 5'6", he's a smaller guy, but like he's absolutely like jacked. He dislocated Daniel's shoulder in the first practice of the first thing. However, disclaimer, Daniel has had a bad shoulder for years before that and hasn't popped out plenty of times. But being the first practice, the first drill for bringing in a brand new team, God, that's like, I can't believe half the people just quit right there. Like, it's craziness. Those things that you look back and sure, it's terrible at that time, but you can laugh about it after a little while, but you gotta wait. Anyways, sure. Alyssa, go ahead.
Yeah, Alyssa, you're up. So how do you guys do your recruitment, and then how do you guys kind of retain the players you have?
Yeah, so Lydia touched on a lot of important stuff. We don't do as much in the summer. We just haven't. So that may be a good idea for us to start doing, considering that there's actually a lot of students on campus still in the summer as well, like just general student body at Waterloo because of the whole co-op thing. So I'll be back in Waterloo in the summer as well. But our recruitment is pretty heavy in also O week. So especially with posters, one thing that we did this year was we printed probably like 200 posters and just loaded residences with posters. Like some were around campus, but there were probably like 100 in this one popular residence just to get all these first years to come, especially because we had very little returning players from past years because everybody graduated or pretty much. So we knew we needed to pretty much build a new team from scratch. So we just like bombarded the residences in the first week or two, with the try it date printed on the posters as well. And then I guess then we have a try it session where before any of the people who come out commit to the team or the club and pay the fee to join and sign the waivers, etc., they can just come and try it out. And so that's something that we also heavily promote when we're trying to get people to come out, is that you don't have to commit, you don't have to pay any money, it's free. The first one is free, just come, it's free. And then so that's something we plug pretty heavily. And then our actual, like, the way we pitch to people, there's kind of two versions. There's one for the Chads and Stacys and the sporty guys and those types, where we lead with it's rugby, dodgeball, handball, it's awesome, it's co-ed, low time commitment, there's a huge social aspect, and stuff. One other thing that we actually realized was we don't lead with Quidditch. We don't say this is Quidditch, we say this is handball, dodgeball, rugby, and then we sort of explain it, and then it's like, wait a minute, is this Quidditch? And then we're like, yes, but you listened to my whole pitch and now you're gonna join. So that's my pro tip.
Have you watched the Midline by Ethan Stern? It's a new YouTube channel. So he's the commissioner of MLQ, and he's done a lot of videos, and they're absolutely great. I suggest watching them. But one of them was on recruitment and like retention, and he brought on a whole bunch of people, and I believe it was Harry Greenhouse, who plays for Team US. Like, I think he went to University of Maryland. Absolute, like, brilliant guy, really, like, great player, smart guy, all that stuff. But he literally did exactly what you just said. Like, he wouldn't, like, advertise Quidditch. He'd say, hey, like, new first year, you love sports? Yeah, you like sports? Yeah, okay. I have this great sport for you. We do this and that. And you don't have to say the word Quidditch, but you can relate to people on what they like about sports. And you draw them in and throw the Quidditch bomb on them in the last second, and you have them hook, line, and sinker, kind of.
Yeah. Yeah, because people hear Quidditch and they're like, what is that?
Yeah,
no.
Exactly.
Like, they have that sort of prejudice about it. So trying to avoid it as long as you can was something we learned along the way. And then I guess in terms of retention, which is what we were really big on this year, was just having a lot of parties. And so, like, beginning of term party, end of term party, Halloween party, St. Patrick's Day party, which didn't happen because social distancing, but
good for you.
Good for you guys.
In
Not
last
like Queens.
year, yeah. So like, so that, and so even I think after practice this year, and this wasn't our, like, we didn't impose this, it just sort of started happening, and it's really cute. There's like a post-practice bubble tea where everybody on the team just started going to get bubble tea after practices, and it's the cutest thing, and I love all my first years who came up with that. Makes my heart so full. And yeah, so that's my 2 cents on recruitment and retainment.
Yeah, that's awesome. And then this kind of just came to me, but when it comes to like recruiting players, it's not something I really thought about until, like I said, until now. But because I just had my social psychology exam, so we're talking about like Robert Cialdini and his like persuasion principles. But one of them is about like the idea of reciprocity. So I wonder if like maybe if like teams like gave like recruits or like whatever something, and there's like that like mindset they have to give something back, so they have to like try out or something, or even like he was famously like recruited as saying like a lot of I forgot the name of the principle, but it's where you like kind of you write down a huge list of people. So like if you had like a sign up list and you put a bunch of like just the current team people on the list, so it looks like a lot of people are actually interested. People are more likely to get in, like sign up for it, kind of thing. I wonder if some of like those principles would kind of apply. And we'll do it. I have one person that's really interested in talking about like psychology and stuff like that, and like as it pertains to sports. We'll definitely do something like that. But I just kind of your idea of recruitment that kind of brought it up. But yeah, no, that's cool, awesome. So we'll kind of shift gears then into tournament hosting. So that's obviously a huge thing with Quidditch right now. Is there's always seems to be like a little bit of uncertainty in terms of what tournaments we're going to, who's hosting tournaments, who can host tournaments. Cost of the tournaments just because of like how many teams can go, et cetera, et cetera. So I just want to kind of get a sense of what the tournament hosting policy is like, if there is even such a thing at both Queens and Waterloo. what it would take to host a tournament. Have you guys like looked into it? Do you guys have a tournament director like on like as part of your exec, that kind of thing? So we'll start with Queens because I honestly don't know what it's like at Queens.
Yeah, so we definitely always look into hosting tournaments. Everyone at Athletics and Recreation is super stoked about seeing one of these days. But what ends up happening for us a lot is like those tiny little like non-official fun tournaments. Waterloo, you came to our joint practice like 2 years ago. We had one with Valhalla and McGill a little while back. And that's helpful because we don't have to follow a lot of the same rules, and it's smaller scale, so we don't really get in trouble by the city for using city property, which brings me to like the giant issue of the venue, because booking through Queens means we can get bumped by any varsity sport. If the weather's bad and they can't use their grass, then they take our turf. And if you book through the city, that's something we've looked into a little bit, but there's not a whole lot of open green space that's like flat. And then the bubble domes. There are 2 in Kingston, one of which is run by the military, and they don't really like renting it to civilians. And the other is super far away from everything and also super expensive because it's the only bubble dome for civilians. And obviously we've looked into little things like this, but the giant overlooming issue is just time, because there's so much else to do, and I don't have to tell any of you this because you've all done it. But it's just, oh yeah, I also have a psychology midterm in biochemistry, and oh right, top score. And when was this due? 2 months ago? Yeah, that's the biggest hurdle for us.
Yeah, fair enough. Yeah, the one that kind of sucks. I think it was Kyle that told me that, like Queens like has the power to, if you host a tournament and it like snows, like, and it's like on their field or whatever, they just cancel the tournament, and you like that would be awful. Like if you had people coming up and whatever.
Yeah,
that's kind of rough.
and then you lose your deposit as well, which is a big hit. That's thousands of dollars.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know Queens, you only hosted one tournament on campus. That was like my first year, so like
Same here, Nate. Same
Yeah.
here.
Ever since then, there hasn't been one, but yeah, there's a lot of issues that kind of relate to that.
Yeah, it's too bad.
Yeah.
What about you, Alyssa? What does Waterloo kind of look like in terms of what the potential of even having a tournament, like that kind of stuff?
So never in my years of Waterloo have I been to a tournament, but I know that we have hosted a tournament in the past on just like a green open space that we have. It's not a turf field. Like we have a turf football field, but we also just have this big green field where we actually have our practices. It's normally covered in geese. And
I remember. I was there.
Holy!
I won a lot of tournaments in my first year, and there haven't been tournaments there since. And I remember the geese.
Well, the geese are still there. That has definitely not changed. But I know that this past year they finished building a new field house in Waterloo. So now we have the field outside and the field inside. And so I've started talking to our athletics coordinator about hosting a tournament at Waterloo. And so I haven't deeply explored it yet, so I don't know how difficult it is yet. I'm not excited, but we're gonna try. And then next year, if we have another podcast, I'll let you all know just how difficult doing it at Waterloo was. But fingers crossed.
What's the odds you guys get that for like practice as like a practice field?
So we have been using the indoor turf field in the winter for practice.
Oh, okay. That's good.
So that's been awesome. We don't have it so if we have practices 3 times a week, I think the availability for it has been like once or twice during the week, and then the other day is inside of like a regular gym. So like hardwood or hard floors or whatever, but what can you do? So it hasn't been bad. And then I know that when I did bring it up with athletics to host in the winter, because in the fall, if we do host a tournament, it unfortunately will probably be on the V1 green.
Perfectly fine.
Goose poop filled field. So But in the winter, if we do it inside of the field house, it's similar that if varsity sports are happening and Waterloo has to host a tournament, they will come and commandeer the field away from us. So
Yeah.
I didn't realize so many universities actually did have indoor turf. I figured that cause we don't, and that's the only one I see.
Come on, Queens, catch up. Like,
Yeah.
We're far
honestly.
behind. We apologize.
Yeah, like that's like the two things we don't have is we used to have, believe it or not, fun fact, at Queens, the Mitchell Hall used to actually be, well, it used to be the PEC, but we used to also have an arena or a rink on campus, which is cool. But yeah, that's two things we don't have. We don't have a arena on campus. We have the Memorial Center, which is like 10-minute drive from campus, 5-10-minute drive. And then we have, it's not, we don't even own it. And then there's no like indoor turf, which is like crazy. But I'm assuming it's coming. It has to be coming.
Yeah, they got a lot of money.
But no, I had a question though for Alyssa. Is the field house the kin building? Because I remember when I was applying, like they said that they're building a new kin building. Is that what that is, or is that just something totally different?
No. New kin building, separate.
Okay. Cool. Sweet. So that's awesome. We'll kind of finish up this sort of part of the podcast with like one like overarching question, I guess. So if there was one thing that you want more for your teams and like in order to be successful, so whether that be funding, more practice time, more tournaments, if there was one thing that you could like ask for, whether it be like more from like Quidditch Canada, like what can Quidditch Canada do to help sport more? Like we're not trying to like single anyone out here, but like just in general, what would be one thing that you really wish you had more for your team? Like I said, whether it's resources, practice time, more tournaments, etc. We'll start with Alyssa. What do you guys think?
So that actually ties in nicely from what I was just talking about, because I don't know the process to go about hosting a tournament. And I don't know if this exists. This might already exist, so maybe I'm just asking for it. But how to host a tournament, and if I need to go through Quidditch Canada, if I need to just coordinate with athletics, if I need to get athletics to coordinate with Quidditch Canada, sort of the step-by-step and instructions would be very helpful.
I know there was a video by Quidditch Canada. Yeah. You know. Basically, there was something posted a couple weeks ago. It should be on the Quidditch Canada like YouTube channel, but it's literally how to host a tournament. To the extent of how does that like. How do they get along with university? That's a whole different issue. That's like that would be obviously something to look into, or that would be really helpful to know. But there's some basics getting out there. I think that's just like a communication thing. Like I did see the video. It is really helpful, but I think that's just a communication thing. So that's something that we can definitely like I've written down is just like general communication between like team execs like yourself and just the Quidditch Canada like higher ups. Because I think right now everyone thinks that the reason why there isn't tournaments is because people just don't want to do them. And I genuinely think it's because people don't know how to do them is more like it because there's so much to organize. So I think that's definitely something to consider for sure. So what about you, Lydia? What do you think Queens needs to be successful?
A lot of the time we think that like being a more official sport is gonna like help us along the way. But being able to see what happens in athletics and recreation kind of made me realize that isn't the case. Varsity athletes, they're not there on scholarship. They pay $5,000 a year to play lacrosse or whatever. And they have even more policies. Like they have to take a bus at 5 a.m. They can't leave the night before, stuff like that. So the university has really been good to our program, really supportive, and they always want to see what they can do. They especially love designing our jerseys. They thought it was dope. One thing.
I don't know about that one, but
okay. Well, I thought it was cool. And then the thing that I kind of wish would come to fruition is if we could push regionals and nationals back a little bit, because I noticed especially this year they were a lot earlier than other years. And it's really difficult to organize a semester where it's like, okay, our tryouts are in week 2, and then there's homecoming, and then we have this tournament, and then, oh my God, it's regionals. And it's like, all of a sudden, our rookies haven't really had as much practice as we would like them to have, and they're going against Brian Melchior, and they're going against Thor.
Trial by fire all the time.
True, throw them into the fire. See what happens.
So it would be cool to just push it back a little bit more. That's just a tiny thing I think would make a lot of difference to the universities, especially that can't start recruitment until the second week of September.
Mm-hmm.
Option.
Push it back a little more, but not so close to finals.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say.
There's a sweet spot.
Yeah.
Find
I
it.
Consult us.
Go ahead, Nate.
Yeah, so we definitely talked about this either on an earlier podcast or I guess before we officially started them about like the whole scheduling more tournaments throughout the season, so rookies can get more experience, more confidence throughout the season as well. It also helps too with retention. If you have more players being involved, you are more likely to see them return next year because they're able to actually get into that game in-game experience throughout the season. Yeah, basically that was my 2 cents on that.
And
Yeah, so
option 2, Lydia, is new shopping carts.
No, we're painting the shopping carts in Queen's colors. It's.
You stole that shot, but
I didn't steal
Commandeered,
them.
borrowed.
I didn't steal them from the property that they belong to. I stole them from the streets and gave them a new home. So.
go ahead, Gabe.
You did them a favor.
Exactly.
No, I was just gonna say. So, okay, 2 things. One, I agree with like regionals being pushed back, but nationals I feel like is almost the opposite. Like you want nationals to be more close to that. I think, at least what I saw in the there was a massive thread in the CQA Facebook group. One of the things was people were saying it's too close to finals for nationals because it's in the winter semester. So especially if we're having to go out west, I'm not going to speak on you. I don't know what you guys think, but what I think in general is just like the nationals is too far back in the winter semester, but the fall semester we want it to be pushed back further. Is that what I'm?
Yeah,
saying?
basically.
I could agree with
That
that.
would work. Yeah.
Kind of away from like the start and the end of the season. You kind of want them more in between.
And if you can get 1 tournament or maybe 2 if you're lucky in the winter, like that's the perfect ramp up right into nationals. And I think that would be, I think that's really interesting. I would love to, like, I think the more opinions we hear about this, the more ideas are out there for changing stuff.
I mean, we definitely start losing a little bit of interest in the winter semester because we're in the gym, so it's not getting fresh air. And then, especially if we're not going to nationals, it's people are busy and they don't want to get out of their warm bed to hike through the snow to then go play in a gym.
Yeah.
Make an outdoor practice. Do it in the snow, Lydia.
Once in a while.
My God, no.
But it's usually like a day of decision, and we require athletics and recreations requires 48 hours notice before you don't use a facility. And if they check and you're not using it when they gave you it for free, they will not be happy.
Yeah.
Yeah, it definitely happens in previous years where like team seasons are basically over at regionals before like winter break, just because they're not going to nationals that year. So it's kind of hard to like keep interest in that second semester because you're not really practicing for anything. It's more so just, I guess, an outlet from studies, which is not bad, but still.
So then ideally we have like 1 or 2 tournaments before nationals. I think the bigger, like the $1 million question is, especially to hear from you guys, is what do you guys think in terms of prior to? Obviously the fall, I feel like the fall semester is more congested because there's homecoming, reading. Everyone has reading week now. I think with Queens having reading week now. So like, how many tournaments do you think before regionals is realistic to fit in for every team before regionals? Because I think the reason why we want more tournaments before regionals is just to get everyone up to speed and just to like have the level of play at the level we want it to be going into regionals and not have the most competitive games be a semifinal game because those are the only teams that have actually practiced and got to know each other. Or do you think it's better to have just more practice time and then just like throw everyone into the fire basically for regionals?
I don't think that, like for Waterloo at least, our players don't understand Quidditch until they see a tournament and play in a tournament. Because when we're practicing against ourselves, we are not full on tackling, even though we should be. Like it is not at the intensity it needs to be or at the pace that it needs to be. So more tournaments over more practice time is my vote.
Trial by fire.
Basically, yeah.
I can say that even our own executive team is split on this, whereas like me personally, I agree. Like I learned so much more at tournaments, and I think more tournaments would be better before regionals. But then other members on exec are no, we don't want them too soon. We want to get lots of practice so they don't get hurt at a tournament, because if we hurt them at a tournament, then they can't go to regionals. So that's just the other side of the argument. But personally, I do like the tournament idea, because the sooner they learn the game, the less likely they are to get hurt.
I think with like implementing those joint team practices like Queens did with Waterloo that one year, it's not like you're not playing official games, but you definitely get that in-game experience because you're playing against an opponent, so you're more likely to be physical, you're more likely to, I guess, go full out, and you kind of get that experience of an actual in-game play-in time versus just going to the tournament for the first time and then kind of learning like on the spot there.
Mm-hmm.
So for those that weren't like who haven't experienced it during practice, what does it look like? Is it like an exhibition, like an informal exhibition, or is it like, are you guys actually running drills together? I've never been part of one personally, so like, is it how does it work? You guys just like kind of practice together, and then?
From what I remember, I know we did like 3 games. I think or two or three games we played against Waterloo, and in between we did some drills with them. So it's kind of like we did.
It was a lot of fun.
Yeah, scrimmage, drills together, another scrimmage. I think we did 2 scrimmages. And yeah, so you kind of get that game experience. You kind of learn different practice drills from the other team as well, and kind of implement that.
And then there was a sweet party afterwards, promoting the social aspect of
yeah.
Social gathering.
That was awkward for me because I injured one of your players during one of the scrimmages, and he showed up to the party.
Yeah.
So would you say that's beneficial then? Like, do you think if we can't have more tournaments, more joint practices?
Tournaments, for learning it's helpful.
It basically just takes another team to be like, hey, do you guys want to practice like this Saturday afternoon for a few hours? And it's pretty easy just to like have 3 or 4 games. Well, I guess 4 is too many, but 2, 3, 4. You can.
Where was the practice? Did you guys meet halfway, or was it?
No, we came to Queens.
It was at Queens.
Okay.
It wasn't where we.
So I think Queens is gonna have to come down to Waterloo.
Well, what we had planned originally was a mini tournament. We also invited like Guelph and Ottawa, but they dropped out like last minute.
Yeah. and then you guys even pushed the time back. You were like,
So
we
you
don't
can
have to
drive
start
the
at
morning
8. You can come at noon.
Yeah.
Like, chill.
It was gonna be a
fantastic.
tournament.
It was fantastic.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Cool. Okay, so we'll quickly wrap up here then with our little fun segment. So we try to make it more not all about the serious stuff, trying to make it a little more fun. So we call this a chill vibe segment. Obviously, the 3 of us played with the Ottawa Waters. That was our theme. I think it's the best theme ever. But anyways, so we'll give you guys a choice. Did you guys get a chance to look at the game by chance, or no?
The one where you pick all the players?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, do you guys want to do that, or do you guys want to? I can pick one of the top 3 questions here, and we can do that. It's up to you guys.
I have everything prepared, so it's Alyssa.
Did you get a chance to look? It's okay if you didn't. It's totally okay.
I looked at it. I'm looking at it now. I don't really know a lot of people.
That's okay. You know, okay, no, we'll do one of the questions. That's totally fine.
Yeah, I'm sorry. That would have been a lot of fun.
That's okay. That's okay.
We need.
John. I can call Keith. He can come on and do it for me.
We need to learn variety for ourselves. That's the thing. Don't worry. This is good for us. We're growing.
We need the practice.
Okay, so we'll go. Okay, I like this one because we haven't done it yet, and I think it's pretty cool. And I think Mo and Cody were upset we didn't do this one. Top 3 Quidditch games that you've ever been part of. Do you think you guys come up with that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, let's do it.
Okay, Lydia, go first.
Okay.
No pressure.
First, obviously, was the Queen's Guelph game, Nats 2018. Gabe will attest.
Nightmares.
Oh.
Terrible. Oh God.
It's in my YouTube recently viewed all the time. Because honestly, I just felt it was such good Quidditch because everything was on the line and it wasn't a dirty game. It was just like a clash of the Titans for like a little while. Obviously Guelph has surpassed us a little bit, but it came down to like 10 points. And I still have the newspaper article written about that game on our fridge in the house.
Wait, there was a newspaper article?
Oh,
Yeah.
There was.
Okay.
I remember that. Yeah, Nate was a little. What were you? I think you're just like throwing the ball in the hoop, and he's Denver's in the picture.
Nice.
Oh, that's awesome.
The sick pick. The photographer. Funny fact, the photographer came up to me after the game, and he's like, "Yeah, good game, guys." And it was pretty funny. I was honestly like not into it, but it's pretty cool.
Gabe is in the other one, guys.
Wait, what the other one?
Nate.
Gabe too.
Wow.
Look at the
Wow.
guy's face. It's funny.
Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
definitely
then-
not a dirty game with me like hitting Yap 6 feet back, with,
Oh,
like in
yeah.
our end
Yeah,
and
yeah.
concussing her, and
That annoys
no
me
hard
so much.
feelings. We're
There
best
was like a,
friends.
there was like a
it's
10,
okay.
10-minute stoppage in that.
Oh,
Yeah.
I felt so bad.
They couldn't review my goal, and yeah, that wasn't fun.
I guess the other game that really sticks out was just sticks out to me because it was one of our last games of Nationals 2019, so the one that was just in Hamilton at McMaster. It stands out to me because so much of our team was already injured at that point, and so many males were injured that females were stepping up into positions that aren't normally that they don't normally play in. So that was the first game I played keeper for like a whole game, and Darby started as point chaser, and it was a really rewarding game for the non-male players, and that's why it sticks out to me.
So what you're saying is make sure more guys on Queens get hurt to
That
provide
happens every year,
opportunities.
though, all the time.
That's not.
I know. I'm just messing with you, Lydia. I'm messing with you.
It was unfortunate how we got there, but it was fortunate where we ended up, I think. Yeah.
Cool. Alyssa, what are your like standout games for you?
I think so. One of them was Frosty Broom 19. And it was I think I don't remember what team it was against, but I know we went into triple overtime.
The greatest game ever played.
Is that also
That's the
for you?
Oh, wait,
greatest
was that
Quidditch game ever. The greatest.
Oh,
It
yeah,
was
I remember
triple
that.
overtime,
I
and
remember that.
Keats false started, and the person on the other team also false started, like right at triple. It was insane. It was the most high pressure, like everybody was watching. It was just so much fun, and like I don't think we won it, but it was a lot of fun.
I think you guys are playing UFT. I think it was
Yeah,
UFT.
I think so.
Yeah,
So much.
that's jokes. Yeah, I remember that game.
I remember that game. I don't even remember who won. I just remember running
remember
around
it.
like a crazy person.
It was
Like,
just back and
loving
forth.
It was phenomenal. That was like the best game of Quidditch. Most entertaining game I've ever seen.
Never seen that happen before. Before then, since then, just triple overtime was insane.
And like, yeah, there's like 4 false starts on each side of the team, not just the 2, but like,
Yeah.
yeah,
It was
everyone.
crazy. That was a crazy game, yeah.
It was like,
Good call.
it's like next goal wins back and forth.
Yeah.
I think the next one that stands out after that was Nationals last year, where I think we were playing Royal City on pitch 1, and then one of our players, Darren Bell, when he played for Waterloo at Nationals, got injured, and then took a while for ambulance to come and get him off, and then Bunny came on to snitch, and then that game just had to literally be moved to a separate pitch because it was just taking way too long to catch Bunny. And then I remember, like, while we were walking over to the other pitch, I think whoever was HRing approached and asked if we wanted a new snitch, and we were like, we would rather have a tired Bunny than a fresh snitch. And so, and it still went on for probably another like 15 minutes after that, and it was like an hour and a half game at least.
And you can really I could really say you guys had I assume you guys had David Chasm on your team, and then Royal City had Chris Ferris and someone else at that time for that tournament, and like he now plays for golf, and I think someone else, that other person, plays for golf now. But like, it wasn't a shortage of seekers. Like you had there's great seekers on both sides. It was just a testament to Bunny just
it was just insane.
nuts.
Yeah. We had David Kazam and we had Barkai Clancy, who's one of our beaters. They were seeking for that game, and it was nuts. And the score was so close too that it was literally all down to the snitch.
Wow.
Good game.
Good times.
All right.
Yeah, that's good.
Awesome. That's great. That's right. I think we'll kind of wrap it up there then. So thank you guys so much for coming on. I think we got a lot out of that podcast, and hopefully the viewers will get something out of that. We like to kind of wrap up and ask you guys if you have any questions for us or any comments, feedback, anything.
Oh, well, this was really great. Well, thanks for inviting us.
Yeah, thank you. That was fun. Fun Tuesday night.
Yeah.
No problem. No problem. All right. Thanks, guys, so much. And we'll be back for part 2 in a jiffy.